What's up, everyone? Welcome to the show. Before we get into it, just a couple of announcements. First, I'm Ray. I'm the guy who runs Line Cook Thoughts. I know the last two videos I really didn't get to introduce myself, but I run this page, and the last two were just raw videos. So hopefully as we move forward, we'll have more of this like introduction style. But first, thank you all for tuning in. Before we get into this interview, I just wanted to mention that I run the Instagram, and the podcast, obviously. And what I'm doing this next month in October is actually running 40 miles for World Central Kitchen. World Central Kitchen is an organization I look up to a lot. And so we're running 40 miles to raise awareness and funds for that organization. And if you'd like to join, just DM me on Instagram at linecookthoughts or email me at linecookthoughts@outlook.com. And yeah, I just really excited for for the run next month. My guest today is Hanalei Souza. She is the face behind at ladylinecook on Instagram, and these are memes and silly videos that give a glimpse into kitchen life. She's also the author of the memoir Nice Work Boys, which is about her time working and leading in male-dominated workplaces. And the interview I had with her is really interesting because she makes such relatable content. If you've ever seen her content, she works in kitchens. Like, if you've ever worked in a kitchen, you'll understand what I'm saying. But really, just had a blast talking to her, interviewing her, having her on the show. But I did want to mention that a little bit of the interview did get cut due to some Wi-Fi issues I had that day. Last week, with everything going on with the weather, my Wi-Fi did go out kind of in the beginning, and we weren't able to recover the first 7 minutes. The podcast that's out does have the full audio, but unfortunately the video didn't work out. So we're going to enter the conversation actually she already introduced herself, said she was running the page, and kind of just a little bit more about herself, which you'll be able to find in the podcast audio. But we're really just getting into kind of pieces of content that she's creating, more specifically one where someone enters the kitchen and just walks by her to ask where the chef is, not realizing she's the person that places the orders. So that's kind of where we're going into the conversation. Hope you all enjoy it. And like I said, if you want to hear the first 7 to 8 minutes of the actual conversation, be sure to check out the podcast. But yeah, really great interview, and just thank you, Hanalei, for coming on. And here we go. Going back to basically the content piece of someone enters the kitchen and they're like, "Where's the chef?" And obviously you're the person in charge. Where did that kind of come from? Where was your inspiration from that?
Yeah, kind of from my experience, but I didn't get it that much. But it was also from other women, because I was still in that Lady Line Cooks Facebook group, and then sometimes I put out these question stickers on Instagram too. So I got a lot of stories from other women too. So sometimes I'll create content maybe that's not necessarily something that I went through, but something that was inspired by what someone else told me. For example, I made this video that was things people have said to female cooks and chefs, and it was there's a bunch of sexist stuff and stuff that I never heard said to me, but literally quotes that I collected from other women on Instagram, and saying hey, these people still say this kind of stuff, oh, you should be pregnant and barefoot and at home and not in a restaurant kitchen. And people in 2021, people are saying that. So
Wow.
It's interesting. And then a couple videos were inspired from my own work experience. For example, the one where it's why are you looking at him? Don't look at him. Look at me. He's not going to help you. It's it was literally, we train our front of house for one shift in the kitchen. So there was this guy who was literally hired that same day as a bartender, and he was working his shift in the kitchen, and he was this white dude. And the delivery guy comes in and goes right up to him and asks him to sign, and the guy's just he's clueless. He's I have no idea what's going on. And then I step in, I'm hey, I placed those orders, let me sign it. It was just one of those hilarious moments where it's oh man, I could and then I made that reel soon after that. But it's a little bit of my own experience, and then a little bit of collecting stuff from other women, whether it's from the Facebook group. Sometimes someone will just go on and post oh man, the craziest thing happened to me today. I was walking through the restaurant, and someone asked me to pour them a drink, and I said I couldn't pour them a drink because I'm the chef, or something just stuff like that. So partly from other people, and then partly from my own. For me, it's more I'll just mention oh, I work at such and such restaurant. People are oh, I bet you make great tips as a server. I'm wait a second, I don't work as a server. Let me backtrack and clarify a little bit what I do. But yeah.
No, that's I mean, Have you, obviously like the industry has had this whole like last like 5 to 10 years of reshaping kind of the norm of how things are run, whether it's like abuse in the kitchen, harassment, or even like just like, who we expect people to be in terms of like leadership positions. Have you
Yeah.
seen over the last few years like a big change, or do you like as you progress in your career, obviously as a female in the kitchen, how has it been the last few years in regards to like you leading, or maybe like how the industry is evolving? Is it evolving, or is it kind of just been the
Yeah.
same?
I mean, I've only been in the industry for 3 years, but obviously I've read like Kitchen Confidential and like I've read other people's kind of more like old school, like how it used to be, I guess. And I think we're moving in a good direction. Like personally, I don't know if it's just restaurant by restaurant because I know those like toxic chefs or whatever they're called, like they still exist. Like there's plenty of people who who still like throw pots and pans and yell and try to like belittle their cooks to like make them go faster. But I think like I think as an industry, like people are getting smarter and they're learning to like not tolerate that. Like if that happened to me, like I'd quit and I would find another job where they don't do that. And I feel like a lot of people would have the same viewpoint. Like I feel like back then it was more like this is what it's like to work in a kitchen, like deal with it. But I think and like some people are like old school and they're like, "Oh, this new generation, they're so soft, they can't tolerate." It's like, "No, we just have self-respect. Like we're not going to come into work every day and get screamed at and get pots and pans thrown at us. Like that's not like we're humans. We're not just machines or objects." Like I feel like we're getting and like as a whole we're just moving in a better direction. I definitely feel like it's moving in the right direction. Like the restaurant where I'm currently at, like it's if someone were to like scream during dinner service and like scream at a server because they rang something in wrong, like that would be so like out of the norm. We'd be like, "Hey, what's wrong with you? Like, why did you,
Yeah.
like it would be completely out of the norm." And honestly, like, so we're fully staffed right now, and in my area, there's a horrible staffing shortage. Like, almost every restaurant except us is like closed a couple days a week because they don't have staff. They're closing early because they don't have staff. They're limiting capacity. Everyone is hiring everywhere, but our restaurant, like, people are coming from other restaurants to work for us. Like, we're and we've been fully staffed this whole time, and people and other restaurants are kind of like, "How do you do it?" Like, and like a couple of our front of house people have said like, "Your guys' kitchen, like, we get along. Like, you guys aren't like toxic. You guys are seem like a little more harmonious and with a better relationship with front of house." So I think like people are catching on and like they're realizing like, hey, if you don't like the work environment that you're in, like go work for another restaurant. So I think that kind of builds an incentive for leadership and for restaurants to um, cultivate that kind of environment instead of just being like, well, this is how it is. If you want to work in a kitchen or if you want to work in a restaurant, you just have to put up with it. Like we don't have to anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. The idea of someone throwing a pan or like getting angry. I mean, I know it still exists in the industry in some parts, but just like in talking to cooks through the pandemic, we've seen the labor shortage. We've seen restaurants. It's very difficult to hire people, and sometimes it might not even be like like a restaurant might be like struggling to staff right now. And it might not even be on them. It's just so many people feel burnt out from other work
Yeah,
experiences, or like what I mean. It's like so. I mean,
they
we
just
see
leave the
this.
industry. Yeah,
Yeah, like they leave the industry. It's tough. I mean, I totally get it. Before the pandemic, I was managing for restaurants and I was working 60, 70 hour weeks. And,
yeah,
obviously, like for me, like just what I want to do with my life, like that didn't line up anymore. And like I wanted to get somewhere to where I was working like 45, 50 hours and, have time off to do line cook thoughts and, just other things that I want to do in my world. So, I mean, I totally get it and empathize with that. But I think it's important, that you like share stuff like that because, like you said, there's like this idea that this next generations of cooks is like soft or weak or not going to be able to handle it. But it's like it takes a lot of strength to, uh, you know, challenge the norm and kind of question why we do the things we do. And I think that it's actually been a really cool experience to see it all come together. But do you have a lot of people reach out to you? Like when you put up a piece of content, I'm sure a good amount of people probably can relate. Do you have people reaching out to you, like sharing their own stories or like saying,
oh
"Hey,
yeah,
yeah,
Yeah, all the time, especially other women being like, oh my gosh, like, to be another woman in this world. And like, again, like I said, a lot of these women are like the only woman in their kitchen, and they feel like they're the only woman in any kitchen ever because, you know, you don't see anyone else. But then just to be connected with a community online of like seeing that there are other women cooks who are leading, who are working at every station, who are like, you know, they don't see that, but then to actually like see an account that where they can like relate not just on being a cook but like being a woman in this field. It's like I get like tons of messages all the time of like people telling their stories. Like sometimes people will just like slide into my DMs with like their whole life story about how they started cooking and like burnt out, but then I found your page and it brought back all these memories, and like just all kinds of people, from people who are new. Sometimes I'll kind of open up a bit about like my struggles with certain things, and like people will be like, oh my gosh, we have the same story. Like there's so many people who are young, who are leaders, who have had to like kind of lead and deal with like imposter syndrome and burnout and like all this stuff that I sometimes I talk about on the page. And people, because I try to keep it like funny, but like sometimes I'll like go deeper and talk about some of these other issues. So
Yeah, no, I think it's really cool. I think you have a really cool community and obviously page, so it's cool to see. You know, the other reason I wanted to have you on is you're also an author. You have a book that's been published. So if you wanted to share just kind of what that process was like, you know, obviously first off, if you want to share what the book's about, I think that'd be a good
yeah, yeah. So
point.
the book is a memoir. I always say it was like inspired by Kitchen Confidential. So it was like just when I read that book, I was like, oh man, like I could write about what it's like to work in a kitchen. Like it kind of gave me like permission to like, yeah, people want to read about what it's like to work at a restaurant. And I've been writing for a while. I started my blog when I was 18. It was under a different name. It was actually under writer because I was like I wrote about snowboarding a bit, like
Mm-hmm.
because like that was like my main passion in life goal when I started the blog when I was 18. Like so I wrote about snowboarding. I just wrote about like life and just wrote these like short pieces. And then I started writing about what it was like to work in a kitchen. Then I like rebranded it to ladylinecook.com. So that's still my blog right now, where I just write about I don't write that much in the blog just because I've been so focused on the book recently.
Mm-hmm.
But I would just have like a random moment, again with like the random inspiration. Like I kind of don't really write on a schedule. I just kind of like I'll get these random bursts where I'll I remember my first restaurant job. I just wrote a short blog post about like, hey, this is what it's like to work at a restaurant. And actually a lot of those ended up becoming inspiration for like certain chapters of the book. Like I know there's a scene there where it's like my first time in the weeds, and I wrote that out as a scene as like a blog post, and then I actually took that and it went straight into my book. So that was cool seeing, because it's a memoir, so it's about the title is Nice Work Boys, because that's something that's always been said to me while I was at work at in the ski industry and in restaurant kitchens. So those are kind of like the two fields that it focuses on. And it's really just about like, it's a lot about leadership. The subtitle is Gaining Confidence and Learning to Lead One Job at a Time, because I literally a lot of these leadership situations I was just kind of thrown in, and I
Mm-hmm.
was expected to like just figure it out on the fly. And I've had a lot of good leaders and good mentors through my journey who have coached me along that and like given me the space to do that. And then another aspect of the book, you know, like I said, the title is Nice Work Boys. I'm often the only woman in those workplaces. Like no matter which workplace I'm in, those are just the fields that I've wanted to work in. And actually I remember when that title first came to me, like I was working in the ski industry. I was one woman out of 30 men in my department, and I'd been
Wow.
promoted to a supervisor in that department. And that's when the idea for the book first came to me. That was about 2 years ago. And like I was working, and this guy yelled from the chairlift. He was like, "Nice work, boys!" And I thought in my head, like, "Oh man, if my life were a book, like that would be the title."
Hmm.
And then I kind of like developed that idea. I was like, I feel like I want to write about this winter season that I had, where where I was one woman out of 30 men and I got promoted to be supervisor. And it was my first leadership experience ever. Like, that was the first time I've ever had to lead. And these were all like, they were all older than me. I was 21 and I had to like lead this department. And it was just like, I got like bullied by this one guy. I got harassed. I got injured a bunch of times. Like, it was just not, it was like not like a good when I learned a lot though. It was like
Yeah.
it was an interesting point in time of my life. So I was like writing about it, kind of like I wasn't publishing anything. I was like writing about it in this random Word document. I didn't really know where I'd go with it. Like, I just started writing about it. I tried to be really intentional with like journaling and like writing specific stories that happened, specific people, specific like just I wanted to get more specific with like stories and not just write this like broad general thing. But I still didn't know what I would do with it. Like, I was like, maybe I'll write a blog post or like something. I just wanted to capture that experience in writing. And then that following summer is when I started. I started at that super busy restaurant, and then I started writing about that too. Like, literally, I would like come home after a Saturday night service at 2 a.m. and like just write about how crazy it was and like just what it was like. And I just wanted to bring the reader in. And these were all like super rough drafts. Like,
Yeah.
I would just write like random stories. Like, there was this one day where it was like I got my ass kicked so hard on a Friday night. I just went home and I started writing. I was like, I got my ass kicked so hard, and I was like, I just wanted to disappear. And like, and then that whole thing like ended up in the book, which was pretty cool. But like, again, with a random inspiration, it's like coming home and like jotting down a couple lines, bullet points, whatever. And then it was like about a year ago, it was in October of last year. I was like, man, I feel like there's been enough of a theme like throughout my life in the last couple of years where like maybe I could turn this into a book. I was like, I don't know how long it'll be. Maybe I'll write it all down and it'll be too short and I can't make it a book, and we'll see. So I just sat down and I just started writing my first draft. And a lot of it I was like writing straight from my journal, copy and pasting stuff from those random Word documents and like just stringing it together in story of basically like from going all the way from my ski industry time to like my first restaurant and then to my current job, and then just that leadership journey of like going from nothing, getting my first leadership experience, then like starting again in the kitchen and then working my way up to like being in a leadership position again in a similar type of environment.
Yeah.
And so kind of drawing those parallels. So, and then I finished my first draft and I looked up like, oh, what's a good number of words for a book? And I was like, oh man, like I have a book here. So it's kind of, even when I first started writing it, I didn't even call it a book. I was like, yeah, I'm just writing a thing. Like, I don't really know where it's going to go. And so but then I finished the first draft and I was like, this is long enough. Like, we got a book. So, before I started this, I like didn't know self-publishing was a thing. Like, I thought you would have to go through like publishers and you'd have to get accepted. You have to get an agent. You'd have to give them half your proceeds. Like,
Yeah.
and I was like, that takes years and years and years. And then I had a coworker who self-published a book. And so I was like, oh man, like, how do you do that? And so I kind of looked up and I realized that, yeah, anyone could publish a book. Like, it doesn't even have to be a certain length. Like,
How long was the process to like self-publish your own book?
about, let's see, I started in October, finished the first draft in like 3 weeks, and then edited it for like 7 months. I didn't realize the editing would take that long. I thought my first draft was pretty good, but then I hired an editor who like ripped it apart. I like rewrote it, literally, like, and a lot of writers, they call the second draft a rewrite, and now I like totally understand it. Like, the first draft is you telling yourself the story, and then the second draft is like where it really actually starts to shape up. So I basically like ripped it apart. I rewrote it. It took me like 7 months to rewrite it and like get it good. And then basically throughout the whole time, I was also researching like how I was going to publish. There was a company that like you can submit your book and it distributes it. So you can print your book from the company, but you can also like distribute it. So it gets it on Amazon and it gets it on Barnes and Noble, and you get like a ISBN, which is like a it's a standardized book number,
Yeah.
so that like basically someone can search your book anywhere on Google, on whatever online bookstore, and like they'll find it. So I'm like, you get one of those numbers, and then like you publish it through a distribution company, and ideally it's you're not paying you shouldn't be paying any money up front. Like there are a lot of scam companies that like make you pay to publish your own book, but really like your only expense should be like your editor and your cover designer, anything that you choose, and then a lot of these companies, they just take a small cut out of each book,
Yeah,
like
almost
for
like a
distributing.
drop shipping concept of you don't really need a lot of stuff up front. You have your design, you make the product, and
Yeah.
then they'll take a certain percentage from it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
So
so you don't pay anything up front. And I think it could technically be free if you don't pay for an editor. Like if you really have no budget and you got like your friend to edit it, like I'm serious when I say like anyone can publish a book.
yeah,
Like I'm not that every book sells or makes a profit, but like if you have an idea and you want to just start, like my advice would be just like do it and figure it out along the way. Like I definitely did that. I'm still figuring it out. Like even now I'm in kind of like the marketing phase and like learning how to like I think like one mistake that I made was the distribution company that I used, they don't really work with wholesalers, so they actually didn't have a wholesale price for my book, and
Hmm.
I couldn't change that. And so now like I was reaching out to all these bookstores and they were like, "Oh, you don't have a wholesale price for us." And I was like, "Oh, like sorry about that." So it's kind of like learning on the fly. Like
yeah,
so like now like I made that mistake, and now like a lot of bookstores have told me that they like won't take my book because of that. It's kind of like a distributor thing, but it's like, okay, well, I know for the next book maybe I'll use a different distribution company, or I'll make sure that I make that clear or something. So it's
yeah.
like learning it on the fly, but yeah.
Okay, and I'll be sure to put a link to your book. Anyone listening on the podcast or watching on YouTube, I'll make sure to put a link in the description or the notes. You said it's through Amazon. Is that like the preferred place to go? Is there a link on your website or?
It's best to get it from ladylinecook.com. Amazon
Okay,
takes like a lot of money. Like
all
if
right,
you're an
ladylinecook.com. All
author,
right.
yeah, like what you don't realize is when you buy a book from Amazon, the author makes like cents.
Okay.
Like Amazon, yeah, it's kind of a rant on Amazon, but if you ever want to buy a book in general from an author and you know that the author has like a website for themselves or an author website, it's best to buy it like directly, because like otherwise these third party companies take like most of the money.
All right. Well, ladylinecook.com. Like I said,
Yeah.
I'll put links in the descriptions.
Yeah.
But thanks for sharing that process. So, I mean, yeah, you obviously you have the book. You're creating a lot of content on Instagram. It's obviously getting a lot of traction. You're relating to people. What are some like future plans of yours for the brand, like over the next few years? Like, where would you like to see it go?
Definitely continue writing. Like, I haven't started a second book, but I know this is just my first book out of many, hopefully. Like I definitely plan on writing more. I definitely plan on doing more of these lives. I did my first live last week and that was a lot of fun, and I just want to continue connecting in like a personable way, like being able to like do these like talks, or and like keep doing the silly fun stuff, but also do the more like I do want to do more podcasts, like not my own but other people's podcasts. And
Yeah.
it would be cool, like I've been wanting to do like an author event at like local bookstores and stuff and do more talks. Like I definitely want to break into that. And I definitely just keep writing, keep using ladylinecook.com as like a kitchen life blog. Like I haven't really used it that much just because I've been writing my book for the last like year, so it's like
Yeah.
that's where all my writing capacity has gone. But I feel like now that that's kind of not behind me because I'm still marketing it, but I have maybe a little more capacity to actually write other things that aren't books. So definitely continuing the writing, continuing the videos, continuing the lives, and just continuing to stay connected and personal. Like I try to get back to every DM, like not even about like a whole like what's the word? Like I just trying to connect with my audience, not even to get likes or shares or followers, but it's more like be a person behind the page and connect with other people who have a similar story or can relate to certain things, and hopefully maybe like offer some advice, even though I'm like super new to it too, and I'm just
Yeah.
also trying to figure stuff out as I go. But just kind of trying to encourage that aspect of like a lot of us are just out there still feeling like an imposter, still dealing with all this stuff, but like still getting on with it. So
Still pushing through. I mean,
yeah,
I've created a lot of content around that too. So
I kind of want to show him my setup one day. I have this like ticket rail in my kitchen. Like there are these two like lights that I have to, maybe I'll make a video about this, like exposing it. There are these two like hanging lights that come down in my kitchen, and then I hang this like wooden rail, and then I save all my like receipts, and I tape the receipts onto it, and like that's my famous ticket rail that you see in all my videos. But maybe that's another video for another day.
yeah,
But
no,
it's
that's
just kind
cool.
of funny. It's like everything is so like janky, and I have like an older iPhone, and I film on that. It's like kind of I just want to encourage people, like if you have ideas and you have content and you want to like make a funny tweet and screenshot the tweet, like do it. Like
Yeah,
make your platform. And I know you talk a lot about this too, like build your brand, like make your platform what you want it to be. Like just get out there and do it.
yeah,
So that would, yeah, definitely like use what you have. Don't feel like you need to, like everyone starts with 0 followers. Like I remember starting Ladyline Cook and I was like, man, like I have 1 follower. It was my personal account. And I was like, how am I even going to do this? And, that was like a year ago. So it's like everyone starts at 0 and you just got to make what you can of it.
yeah. I mean, I totally agree. I mean, even now, like I'm about to launch merchandise, which I've done it a little bit in the past, but it was more so like me doing it all, but like just like learning how to like just do this with like a company that's going to be sustainable in terms of like the work production. So doing
Yeah.
that, I mean, this microphone is like my sister's fiance's that he just wasn't using anymore. Like, I didn't like, there's not a lot that goes, like I record off my laptop. So like, there's definitely like ways to make content in which you don't need a lot of like upfront costs. So I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, for sure. I know I'm trying to do merch as well. I launched it, but then I kind of like, and I have people who have already like paid for merch, but it's just taking a little longer than I thought. But it's like, it's part of the learning. It's like, obviously I'm going to be getting this stuff shipped out soon, but it's kind of like I'm just figuring it out on the
Yeah.
fly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
so it's definitely been an experience, especially when there's other people who trust you and buy from you, and then you're like, okay, so like now I actually do have a responsibility to like follow through with this. So
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I totally get it. So, yeah.
yeah,
So I guess one of the last questions is like, we talk. I like to talk a lot about like leadership in the industry. Obviously, you like to talk about that. Who are some leaders? It doesn't have to be like a chef, but just who are some people you look up to as like examples or like people that really inspire you within food?
definitely my current executive chef, and just like a lot of the bosses I've had at my past jobs, like even the one in the ski industry, like they've always been super supportive. Like they've always kind of like taken me under their wing, and like I could see them like purposely trying to build me up as a leader, as like the next. And like often it wouldn't even be in this kind of like formal way. It would just be like, they'll tell me like, oh, it took me 20 years to learn this, but I'm just going to tell you this right now. Like it's like they genuinely care, like especially my current executive chef, like he's just trying to pass everything onto me. And it's like some days it feels like it's like too much, too fast. And like I feel like I'm like failing and drowning and just like I can't do. And he's like, and he'll tell me like, this took me 20 years to learn. Like
Yeah.
like, but it's good that like, that people don't want to just let their egos like hog all the power and like they're actively looking to pass it on to someone. So like I always appreciate a leader that wants to take someone under their wing and like build them up and mentor them and hopefully teach themselves out of a job. Like that's, like to see a leader who's not afraid to teach someone out of teach themselves out of a job. Like I feel like a lot of people want to kind of like stay at the top and like guard their like secret, like, no, I'm the only one who can do this, like I'm the only one who places orders, I'm the only one who can saute. It's like, but then that's how you create a job where you can like never take vacation, and like you
Yep.
need to be able to have people who can do your job so that you're not like like a lot of people want to feel irreplaceable, but you kind of have to take a step back. And like I've realized this too, because for a while I was like, yeah, I'm the only one who does this station. I'm the only one who grills the steaks right. I'm the only one. And then you realize, then you try to ask for a Saturday off for your friend's wedding, and they're like, no, you can't. You're the only one who works the station. I was like, no. And that's kind of, that's why you need to be able to train those people up.
Very well said.
Yeah.
That's a. I think you should. I definitely think that should be a big content piece for you, because that's definitely not something you talked about. That's like, that was really, like, that made me go, that like unlocked something for me. I was like, oh, I never thought of it that way. Like if like, because everyone wants to be like that chef that everyone can rely on, obviously, but we all want to be. I feel like we all have the drive to be the best. But if you're irreplaceable, then you're right. There is no like really work-life balance for you, because if you're not
Yeah.
replaceable, then like, yeah, you're gonna be that person. So that was
Yeah.
really
And
cool.
then you're also empowering someone else
Mm-hmm.
to step into, like, I start a job, and like I usually like want to progress and like want to start leading, like, and I feel like my first restaurant job, I could have stayed there, but it was like there was just the only way up was out, and that's why I quit that job and moved restaurants. It's like
Yeah.
people are losing employees because they want growth, they want leadership, but they're like not getting it. So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's also good for the sustainability, like overall, you're going to get people who stay because they feel like there's opportunity for them.
Yeah. No, totally. Well, thank you for sharing all that, and just thanks, for sharing kind of your whole process. I've, enjoyed talking about, learning more about your page, about you, about the book. So yeah, I like to. Well, first off, before we kind of end the show, where can people find you? I obviously on Instagram, but if you just wanted to share kind of all the, where people can find you, anywhere thing you want them to check out, now would be the
Yeah, so
time.
it would be so the Instagram is at ladylinecook, and then the website's ladylinecook.com. So from there you can find the book and the merch all from ladylinecook.com. And then, so this isn't me, I'm just an admin, but if there are any women chefs listening who want to be part of the Facebook group, that's just Ladyline Cooks.
Okay.
That's on Facebook. I'm just one of the admins, so I don't like run that page. It's just like a group.
Yeah.
So there'll be that. And then I'm also on Twitter, but I don't do much there. But if you want to look me up, I'm at the Ladyline Cook. And that's pretty much it. You can also find me on like Goodreads under Hanalei Souza, or if you search my book or the book's ISBN. And then I'm on like Amazon. Yeah, those would be the main places. You can find the book like really anywhere books are sold, but the best place to get it would be ladylinecook.com.
Awesome. Great. So, I like to end all of my interviews the same. So now, you've been on the show. I like to call my audience the Line Cook Nation, a group of chefs, cooks, people in the food industry who just want to learn and connect more with each other. Now that you've been on the show, you've got to speak to this audience. What does that mean for you to be able to speak to them?
Man, it's definitely, I feel like we're in this together. It's not even like industry experts and like everyone else down here. It's like, no, we're all just trying to figure this out together. Like we're all learning from each other. Like, and that's how I feel as a leader in the kitchen too. It's like, just because I'm the sous chef and you're the brand new guy who just got hired as a dishwasher doesn't mean I can't learn something from you. Like, I'm always trying to learn from like everyone, no matter what level they're at. Like, always trying to get ideas. Like, always trying to include everyone in like. So even though you're a leader, you're really just like you're leading, but you're also just like facilitating. You're also just gaining value from like everyone, instead of pretending to be like this industry expert, because I'm definitely not. Like I'm
Yeah.
definitely just someone with a meme page who makes goofy videos, but I'm definitely not an expert in anything. But I'm glad to learn from everyone, from followers, from just people who have been through it or want to go through the industry or stuff like that. So
Yeah. I mean, you definitely, though, are a voice for many people. And so, I think that's important. And yeah, just, don't just make sure you realize that, because, a lot of people relate to your content, and obviously
yeah.
it helps them. So that's good. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, and yeah, we'll chat soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, so there you have the interview. Thank you all so much for listening this week once again. I'm really excited to keep going with these YouTube videos, and yeah, just very excited for the podcast coming up in the next few weeks. So if you would like to run for the World Central Kitchen fundraiser, please send me a DM on Instagram or email me at linecookthoughts@outlook.com. And thank you once again for tuning in this week, and I'll see you on the next show.